spark the imagination, you know.
That's right. Okay, cool. Well, we're just coming up to the top of the hour, Lyle, and so that means we're entering the question and answer session. So, to all the listeners out there, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat room, or you can call 888-919-2355. And obviously, Lyle, while we're waiting for questions to come through, you know, we'll carry on. And I guess one of the big questions that I did have for you was that, you know, after all your research that you've done and findings and spoken to the witnesses, you know, what do you feel the creature is, or the creatures are? I mean, you know, are they an offshoot of the human race? Are they an unknown ape? Is it something else?
You know, my gut instinct is that, you know, these people, in most cases, they saw something. I mean, you know, there's no proof as to what it is, but I definitely came away with a feeling that these people weren't lying or making this up. They saw something. And so if you go by the descriptions of what they saw, you know, it pretty much puts it into the realm of Sasquatch, and then would be a party to all the theories thereof. You know, where did it come from? Why is it here? How come nobody can get any proof? So personally, I kind of start at the ground level and think it's some kind of an ape-like creature that somehow eluded detection all this time. You know, possibly came across the Bering Straits and moved into these pockets of woods in America, and the populations have thinned, and you know, just due to luck and probably in skill and intelligence of these animals, they've been able to hide. So, you know, I give it a high probability that something is real. You know, something is behind this, and it would be some kind of an ape. You know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we've got a question in the chat room where someone's asked, have you ever used a scent detector? They said like the ones used at Area 51. I'm guessing, you know, they're talking about something to actually to detect the scent of the creature, or something that, you know, might identify its location, something along those lines. Which I guess opens up, you know, the bigger question as well. You know, the type of equipment that you feel is needed if we're going to find some of these creatures and you know, and identify them.
Yeah, I've never used a scent detector. I don't own one, and in fact, I can't recall any Bigfoot researchers that I know that even have one of those. So I typically just use the old-fashioned scent detector, which would be my nose and my eyes. I mean, like I mentioned before, I've been a hunter for as far back as you know, as being a kid. So, you know, I kind of approach any of these kind of investigations, you know, with a little old-fashioned hunting, you know, like I would a deer, a turkey, or a hog. And I've been quite successful at shooting turkeys, and turkeys are, you know, you can't just go tromping through the woods and walk up on them, you know, and deer as well. So I kind of approach it in that manner. I mean, I use as much technology as I have available, but most of it's very expensive. Thermal imaging and all that, you know, it's just pretty much out of the range of the average researcher. So unfortunately, we don't often have access to that equipment.
Okay. Do you think, I mean, sort of an offshoot from that answer, do you think one of the reasons we haven't got the hard evidence is mainly because those of us that go looking for these things, you know, we're not on $1 million budgets? Do you think it's, you know, the people who do have the big budgets are the ones worried about reputations, etc., and won't go looking for them? So.
Oh yeah, I think that's a problem. People say, you know, oh, why don't you just go find it? Well, you know, if you could take 6 months off of your job and go deep into the woods and become part of the woods, then you know, it's possible you'd have better success. But the real world imposes on us. You know, you can only go for short periods of time. You can go in places that, you know, there's in Texas, I mean, and in Arkansas, I mean, there's only so much public land where you can roam around. You know, a lot of this stuff is private land. It's difficult. So if you had a huge budget, you know, you could people are like, well, get some of those Army remote control aircraft and all that stuff. I'm like, well, that'd be great, but no, which Army is volunteering to help me out looking for Bigfoot?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but if you had that kind of budget, I mean, if you were Tom Slick and you could lay down some money, and he did while he was alive, he had people in the field and got some good results. It just shows you that money helps. So certainly, if we had a big budget, Nick and I would be happy to accept a grant at this time, and we will bring you evidence.
And we'll find that body.
We'll find it.
And I mean, joking aside, not that was all of a joke, but I mean, joking aside, I mean, a lot of people have said about, if these things are nomadic, should we be kind of following the food trail? I mean, a lot of people have talked about how these things have been seen, in riverbeds and round bodies of water. Do you think, if it's difficult to catch the creature, if there's something about them that prevents us finding them, then actually going after the places they might hang out is the better approach?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. Yeah, I definitely think that's a good approach. I mean, if you just use some logic and say, where are these animals most likely to be? And that would be to follow the food source and to follow water. And it's not perhaps coincidental or not surprising that most of the sightings in the southern areas down here, Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, the sightings are near bodies of water, or they occur in the portions of the state that get more than 40 inches annual rainfall. So concentrating in those areas is good. I mean, there may have been a sighting in closer to West Texas once. There has been, but I'm not going to go out there and look because I say that's a low probability. Yeah. Not to say that a stray Bigfoot or two didn't decide to venture west, but logically, I'm going into the habitat in the areas around here that would be most likely able to support a large animal. That's going to be your best shot. Yeah.
Okay. And if these things, as some researchers have suggested, that they could be kind of nomadic, that they're not just in one location, but they actually follow the food. Do you think it's possible that, when people talk about the beast of Boggy Creek, we're actually talking about something that, may have been in Boggy Creek for a couple of years and then is inadvertently responsible for sighting somewhere else as well? That, it's not just the beast of here, the beast of there. It could be these things just roaming around all over the place.
Yeah, I think so. I kind of explore that to some extent in my book as I kind of go into the section about, well, could this area really support a creature like this? And in doing that, I expanded the net, and looked at not just the immediate area around Fouke, but the general area. And as you kind of look at that, you see the kind of how the waterways flow south from Fouke. That's all part of what's called the Mississippi water web, and that web is working its way down to the Mississippi. So you've got sightings down there, like say at Caddo Lake in Texas, which is in Texas and Louisiana. You've got sightings down there, and it's possible that a creature could have traveled from the Fouke area down there. So to me, it seems like it's probably the same creature. It would make sense. I mean, it's not like, okay, well, these creatures are like, well, I'm going to be the Caddo critter, and I'm going to hang right here, and then, well, I dub Fouke, I'm going to be the Fouke monster. That's not how animals work. They're going to, if they move, they could certainly be sighted in and around these areas, and I think the area where Fouke sits is kind of the center of a high, dense forestry area, and so naturally these animals would roam around and be seen in other places.
Okay. And one of the things I liked about your book, in the sense it was very balanced, is the fact that you didn't shy away from looking at the idea of were there some hoaxes, were there some misidentifications of other animals. I mean, do you feel that that's an important thing? That obviously, as researchers, we need to get across to people that we're not just accepting everything we hear, 100% of the time, that we are uncritically, looking at I mean, we're looking at all the data with an open mind rather than just accepting it with an open mouth, so to speak.
Oh, sure. I think that's highly important. I mean, and as much as I would love for these creatures to exist, I still want to be logical and level-headed about the way I look at it. It doesn't do anybody any favors just to accept everything at face value and to kind of close a blind eye to the other possibilities, and that puts you off in the wrong track. You got to toss out the things you don't think fit, and so and as well, I kind of wrote the book in a way that it's not just written for people who are Bigfoot researchers, quote unquote. It's written for anybody who likes a spooky story, that likes horror movie history, that likes legends of real creatures, and I think in that respect, people want to know, well, what else could it have been? Let's explore these other possibilities. So I cover all the theories that people have suggested, like it was moonshiners that created this monster, or the it was actually Black Panthers, the Black Panthers cats, that people were mistaking for 7-foot upright animals, or the old standby, it was a circus train wreck, but it was fun to research those, and I took them to their logical conclusions, and ultimately, I guess you can read in the book what I found, but those are interesting things unto themselves to explore. I mean, was there a circus train that just careened off the tracks down there and spilled over in Falk, and Bigfoots ran into the woods, I mean, or apes or whatever. So naturally, I think those are interesting, so I followed them, and I think people appreciate that I did as well, because when you kind of all come back around to the point where you say, we've explored all this, what remains? People still see this.
Yeah, there's still a good body of evidence that something weird was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think now, once we've explored all the possibilities, if your conclusion, or you feel that there's a high probability that this creature exists, it's well grounded now. You've got a good foundation as to why you believe that, and you can move forward from there, because you have, for better or worse, embraced all the other possibilities. And I think we should always do that as researchers, is to eliminate perhaps the more logical explanations, and if those don't eliminate it, then now we're onto something.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And we've talked about what the response was from the locals when you decided to write the book. I wondered what the response has been from the paranormal or cryptozoological research community, sort of your peers and colleagues, and what they've thought about it as well.
Well, I mean, just judging from how many radio shows I've been doing, I'm doing a lot of speaking events. I've been invited to do many events, and just to specifically speak on the topic of the Falk monster, just like I am now, just sort of give everybody kind of the gist of the story, and let them know what it's about, because so many people are interested in the legend of Boggy Creek. So I had a little advantage there, obviously, but the reviews of the book have just been phenomenal. I mean, which is great, because, I mean, it's my first book. I mean, I've written many articles in magazines, and that just sort of what you do, and goes by monthly. But a book is something different. It's closer to you. Spend a lot of time. So I'm really glad that people responded in such a positive way, and that people basically every review just says I couldn't put the book down. And for a writer, that's just a great compliment. And so I think I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who have also said, hey, I didn't realize so much stuff there was so much sightings in Falk and stuff, and people I think are opening their eyes that maybe that's still a good area to research. A lot of people have been showing up down there in town, actually showing up at the Monster Mart in Falk and everything, saying, "Man, I read the book, and now I got to come down here and just look at the area." So it's really has sparked a lot of interest.
All right, good. And we've got another question from the chat room here, which goes like this. How about this? Bigfoot researchers should get together and start a big project, use their websites and email to raise a lot of money, hire the best tracker in the world, give him a great camera, and send him off to British Columbia. Would that work?
It's not a bad idea. I think the problem there is, you get into, I think every Bigfooter thinks they're the best tracker in the world. So why would I help raise money to give it to this dude? I think that's inherently the problem there. But really, that's not a bad idea. If people could somehow agree on one person that they thought exhibited exceptional abilities to find reclusive animals, then I'd throw in some cash for that, So it's a good idea, really.
I think one of the big problems, though, is, of course, if there aren't many of these creatures around or left, maybe, that it really is a case, even if you're the best tracker around, to a degree, it's a case of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that too. I mean, that would be the best shot you could give, but really, it boils down to a winning lotto ticket, because a lot of people say, well, how many places can there be to hide? But people don't realize how much forestry. I mean, there's East Texas alone is like 12 million acres of forestry. I mean, you put up a game camera. I mean, it's a needle in a haystack, and your eyes are the needle in a haystack. You can move around, but you're still at the mercy of the elements and just being in the right place at the right time and hoping the thing doesn't hear you before you see it. I mean, there's a lot of factors, that make it hard.
Okay. And sort of having written one book and, done radio, lectures, conferences, has this sort of got you on the bug for more books now? And if so, is there anything you can sort of share with us? I know sometimes authors don't like to sort of talk about upcoming ideas, or, just want to say you've got a few things in the works, so to speak.
Well, I'll let you advise me on that one, but I definitely want to write another book. I think, that's the feedback and success of this one's definitely got me wanting to do that. I've spent some time, I guess now, just kind of promoting myself and getting the book out there and just making sure everybody's heard of it, so rather than just sort of throw it out there and go start writing another book. But of course, I have all these ideas in my head, and I know you and I have tossed around a few ideas, so now it's like, wow, how do I follow up the Boggy Creek book? That's my problem. This was just fascinating to me. It just all fell into place. I'm like, man, how am I going to top that? But I've got some good ideas, and I think I can do it. So I've been starting to research some for a new book. So hopefully here in the next, year or so, I can get another one written. Okay,
cool. And you've also got like a good line of T-shirts and posters and things like that going on for the book as well, don't you?
I've marketed my own band Ghoultown for years, so I kind of brought that rock and roll marketing experience to this book project, and I mean, a lot of that stems from, wow, I love the Beast of Boggy Creek. I want a T-shirt myself. Well, I don't want to make one. Why don't I just make 100 of them and sell them to other people? And in fact, the response to the shirts has been great. I can't believe how many I sold. And those are also on my falkmonster.net site that you can buy the books and the T-shirts, and the book cover art is just so phenomenal that people are like, oh man, you should make this into a poster. I'd buy that. So I'm like, well, yeah, that's a great idea. So posters. So, I've tried to make it fun and throw some stuff out there that looked good and people might want to buy. And, my friends can get, a poster or whatever. So yeah, I'm all about that.
Okay. And are there any sort of upcoming events, gigs, things like that you want to tell people about?
Yeah, let's see. The next thing I got coming up is June the 16th and 17th in Sacramento, California, the Sacramento UFO Paranormal Summit. I think that's at SACUFO, SACUFO.com. That's going to be a killer event. I think George Norrie's out there, Bill Murphy from Fact or Faked, lot of notable folks. Other authors, David Weatherly, Anthony Sanchez. So that's going to be cool. And then let's see, the Epic meeting on June the 10th in Grapevine, I believe.
Yeah.
And then next year, well, not next year, next fall, there's a lot of stuff coming up. You and I are, I don't guess you're doing that. The Cryptopalooza in Jefferson, Texas. Yeah, a bunch of stuff. But yeah, check out that SAC UFO Con. That'll be the next thing I'm doing.
Okay. And people can find out about all the gigs coming up at your site as well, can they?
Yeah, at my monstrobizarro.com site, there's a list of all my appearances, or if you go to the Falcon Monster site, it links back to my site. So easy to find me. But yeah, it's been cool to meet people. Now that the book's out, I get to go out and meet people face to face and hear their stories, and they tell me about their experiences or recollections of seeing the Legend of Boggy Creek. So that's just always cool. I love to meet people, in the real world out there.
Okay, good. And we'll just give your upcoming lecture, a plug. That'll be for Epic Voyages on Sunday, June the 10th at Grapevine. And if you go to epicvoyages.com, the website, you can find all the information about Lyle's lecture, I think. I think it should already be up, or if it isn't yet, anyway, it's June the 10th, Sunday. All the information will be available. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, come along, and presumably, Lyle, it'll be an illustrated lecture, will it?
Yes, I got a cool PowerPoint that I do with it. So
okay,
you'll get it in 3D.
Good. And we've just had another question just come through. Are there any other serious Hollywood Bigfoot movies aside from Boggy Creek?
Serious ones. Well, there is a lot of Bigfoot-based movies. There's an author, Dave Coleman, put out the Bigfoot filmography recently, that details like over 300 Bigfoot-related movies, which just amazed me. But a lot of these are, kind of low-budget, cheesy horror movies. If you want to say serious, there's a new one called Letters to the Big Man, which is kind of a new take on it. It's not a horror movie, and that's a serious take on Bigfoot. I haven't seen it yet. It just came out. So Letters to the Big Man might be something to check out if you're looking for something that's serious, quote unquote.
Okay.
So,
all right. I quite like the Monster of Black Lake. I always thought that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, Creature from Black Lake, 1976. Yeah, that was a good one. I mean, and it was. I talk about that one in the book too because it kind of relates. Yeah, that was always one of the better standout movies. As far as horror movies, recently there was one called Savage that I thought was pretty well done. Let's see.
Well, there's the old Hammer film, The Abominable Snowman. That was a good one.
Yeah, Abominable Snowman's good. There's really, it was one kind of an obscure one called Paper Dolls, which is kind of gives a little different take on it, but that's a really good movie as well if you can find a copy of it. Yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Okay, good. All right, Lyle, well, we've got a few minutes left. Would you like to just once again tell people about your book, what it's called, who the publisher is, and where they can get hold of the book and contact you, etc., etc.?
I sure would, Nick. That book is available at falcmonster.net. It's published by Anomalous Books, and of course, they publish really good books by great authors such as yourself. And you could go to anomalousbooks.com, or you can go to my Falcon Monster website. That's FOUKE monster.net. My website is monstrobizarro.com, and I write for the magazine Rue Morgue. If you want to check out Rue Morgue's magazine, it's rue-morgue.com. If you like horror movies from Bigfoot and anything else, I highly suggest checking out Rue Morgue. I do a column in there every month called Monstro Bizarro, which it's just a small column, but I do kind of cryptozoology news, and then I do features as well. Like the last issue, I did a lake monster feature. I've done studies of the Patterson-Gimlin film and other things in there. So it's a cool magazine.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, Lyle. I had a great time, and I'm sure after that, you're going to get a lot of feedback from people, and hopefully book sales, and a great deal else as well. So thanks so much again for coming on the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, thank you. And just as a roundup, just to let you know that next week your guest host will be Dr. Laurel Tagg, and the guest will be Jim O'Con, who will be speaking about his book, The Lost Secrets of Mayan Technology. So if you're into ancient mysteries, things like that, mysterious civilizations from the past, certainly definitely don't miss that one. And again, Lyle Blackburn's book is The Beast of Boggy Creek, available from all good book-selling outfits. And thanks to everybody for listening in tonight. I'm Nick Redfern, your guest host, and again, thanks for listening. Good night.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's Epic Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for Epic. Until next time.
Cover up is fine. The